And welcome everyone to South Huron Council meeting, October 20th, 2025. We'll call this meeting to order. All members of council are present, and we thank our staff for being here this evening to provide us information to help us make the best decisions on behalf of the residents of South Huron. And we welcome those that are participating this evening from home and those that will be participating and joining us this evening in the gallery. A reminder there, make sure your cell phones are turned off. We'll ask everyone to rise for O Canada now, please. And a reminder again, please ensure your cell phones are turned off. Unless you're with the fire department, please leave it on. We'll begin our meeting with the land acknowledgement. As we gather, we're reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. And as a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we're meeting. And thank you for that. Move on to item number 2. Ms. Masuda Collison, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures at this time? Not seeing any. Move on to presentation. We welcome our friends from Watsons and Associates, Nancy and Tina. I believe they're coming in by Zoom. Is that correct? There they are.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure can. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to share a screen here with a presentation. So let me do that and make sure everyone can see that before we get going. Are you able to see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Finch and members of council, staff and the public who are attending tonight. We are going to step through a presentation tonight to give you sort of an overview of the 2025 water and wastewater rate study that we have been working very closely with staff on over a number of months. And this is just the first of a few different stages of this rate study that will be presented in the weeks to come. So we don't have all of the answers finalized tonight, just so that you know. But certainly at the end, if there's some specific questions and direction that you'd like us to go forward with in finalizing everything, we can chat about that at the end. So we are actually undertaking the water and wastewater rate study, as well as the water financial plan that is required for licensing update, which takes place every 5 years. So there is actually 2 components of this. The water financial plan component usually just comes right out of the rate study. It's more of an accounting type document, so we convert the rate study findings once they're finalized into an accounting sort of year-end statement schedules, and then it gets approved and sent in for renewal with your water license. So that is a separate piece that we're not going to talk about any further tonight. But the scope of the rate study really includes looking at updating what was undertaken in your 29 rate study, making sure that we are anticipating growth based on the most recent consumption patterns and trends, as well as looking at that for your existing customers, identifying all of the capital needs for water and wastewater, which include life cycle or asset management replacement of existing infrastructure, as well as layering in that growth-related infrastructure that will be needed to service the growing community with your development that's anticipated. And then also looking at the funding side of things and the cost recovery options that are available. There's a number of funding sources that you can fund capital through, and we're going to get a little bit more into that as we move through the presentation. We are also looking at forecasting your future operating expenditures and miscellaneous revenues and the amount of the overall costs that really need to be recovered through your water and wastewater rates. There has been a number of pieces of legislation that have been put into place over the last really 2.5 decades. One main one that we work within is the Safe Drinking Water Act, and that one actually has a regulation in it, Ontario Regulation 45307, that requires that financial plan to be included every 5 years for your licensing renewal purpose. We also follow a lot of the rules that were set out in the Sustainable Water and Sewage Systems Act that was passed in 2002, the Clean Water Act from 2006, and the Water Opportunities Act from 2010. In addition to those pieces of legislation, there is also a municipal infrastructure strategy that was put out by the province years ago that we embrace, as well as the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperities Act that was put in 2015. And that's the act that requires municipalities to deal with asset management of all of their existing infrastructure, not just water and wastewater. And so there has been asset management plans you've been undertaking in the last few years to meet the requirements of that act. When we look at the rate calculation methodology, this is really, and hopefully people can see it, really just a diagram of all of the different components that we look at to embrace and ensure that we are funding everything that is absolutely necessary to be funded through your water and wastewater rates for those services. Again, some of the drivers are the legislative requirements, some of the local issues that you have yourself, health and safety issues, as well as technological innovations, especially when new infrastructure is being put in place or replacement infrastructure. You always want to make sure you're up to date with the technologies being used in your systems. We look, as I mentioned, at the growth forecast and layer in the capital works that is also needed from to service growth into all of the capital that is coming from those other drivers. And then also look at the funding side of things. And as I mentioned, there's a number of sources. You do have some water and wastewater reserves and reserve funds. Development charge funding that gets collected from new growth goes into a reserve fund that is then in turn used specifically to pay for the growth-related components of capital projects needed to be expanded or upgraded to service growth. You also can impose municipal act charges and issue debt. And then in some situations, there's also grants available to help pay for some of that capital. So that really embraces both the expenditure and revenue side. We do draw some money out of reserves and reserve funds. And of course, then on the operating side of it, we often have to replenish those in future years as well. So with the operating budget, we look at the pure day-to-day operating costs, as well as those that are capital related. So if you need to finance capital through debenture financing or taking out loans, in the future years, you will have annual payments for principal and interest that will have to be paid back. And that's really the capital component of your operating budget. And we've embraced all of those payments where necessary in our analysis as well. What we come down to at the end really is what needs to be recovered from the rates that you put in place. And based on your rate structure and the number of customers, as well as the volume or consumption forecast for the usage of water that your customers, both residential and non-residential, are billed, that is what we use to calculate the rates and project them out over the forecast period, with the growth in new customers being embedded in there and layered on. Historically, there has been a lot of work done by previous councils and staff at South Huron, and really there was guiding principles that were set out back in 2008 that have subsequently been maintained in every rate study we have done since then, including the one we're undertaking right now. Some of those principles include using a uniform quarterly base charge and volume rate for both water and wastewater rates for any customers in both Exeter and Stephen. As well, there is a Exeter Hensel base charge that's imposed, which is specifically recovering annual debt payments from debt that needed to be issued years ago. That's based on a proportionate share of the max day design flows for the project that would benefit those two communities. There's also, as part of your quarterly base charges, when it comes to multi-tenant customers, they are set at 75% of a single family dwelling rate because it recognizes that there's lower occupancy in those smaller units, such as apartments, duplexes, etc. As well, there are in your quarterly base charges, land lease properties that end up getting charged the same as a single family home. And then there's also quarterly base charges that really differentiate based on the size of your water service or water meter. And you'll see that in the next slide that I'm going to show you. And then, of course, there is still Municipal Act capital charges being recovered for debt financing as well for some of the growth-related infrastructure, and that's been embraced as well. So right now, the current rate structure, as I mentioned, there are quarterly base charges that are imposed. Those differ for those apartment residential uses versus any other residential unit, ranging from the $83.72 for apartment units to $111.69 for water, and then $103 to $137 per quarter for the wastewater charges. And then for the non-residential, as I mentioned, they really are differentiated based on the size of that water meter. So depending on what is flowing through those meters, that quarterly base charge is augmented and charged a different rate. So customers with larger meters are being charged a higher proportionate share. That's sort of structure is the same structure that is used for that Exeter Hensel pipeline debt on water. And it is differentiated, as mentioned, based on those design flows for the benefit in Exeter versus Stephen. And then your volumetric rates, you actually have what is called a declining block rate, where for up to the first 10,000 cubic meters per month that is used, you pay one rate, and then for any volumes over that 10,000 cubic meters per month, you actually pay a lower rate once you get over that threshold. And those range right now for water. Your first rate is at the $1.85. The lower rate for the volumes over the 10,000 cubic meters is $1.11. Now, on the wastewater side, there is no declining block rate. It is a constant rate, regardless of how much volume that is used. And then for customers, because we do have a handful of them that are not metered for water, they have wastewater services only. There is a quarterly flat rate put in place that right now is equivalent to $413.60. The existing customers that you have, again, similar to the structure that you saw for the rates, but you have currently over 4,800 water customers and over 3,000, almost 3,900 wastewater customers that are metered. And then, as I mentioned, those customers, there's a handful of them, 9 of them, that are on those flat rates because they don't have that water meter to measure. As noted, we are looking at building in growth to this forecast of rates. And what we have considered really is going out to 2036. And that's based on population and housing projections that were found in the Huron County study, the final report of March 24th. And that same forecast is what we're also embracing in the draft development charge background study forecast that's ongoing, and you'll be seeing over the next couple of months as well coming forward. So everything will be in alignment there. For your capital forecast, we've looked at a number of different sources to pull in all of the costs that are necessary in this forecast period out to 2036. That includes what is currently identified in your 2025 budget and forecast, as well as some refinements that staff has provided us based on things they know that'll be coming forward for the 26 budget and forecast. We've also embraced the Water and Wastewater Master Plan update that was approved earlier this year, and all of the capital works that are to take place in this forecast period that's coming out of that study. Again, for the growth-related works, the development charge background study projects, which also is being informed by that master plan update, but where there's other projects identified from previous DC studies that are still ongoing, that's been embraced in this forecast, as well as a few other minor refinements for timing and some costing that is known based on discussions with your municipal staff. What that looks like is you will notice that the 2025 column, because we're almost through 25, has been separated. But on the water side of things, there was almost $3.5 million worth of capital works that were required in 2025. Looking out from 26 to 36, which is really 11 years, there's almost another $41 million worth of water works that are required. And you'll see that right now, high level, based on what we have identified, there's some funding sources that we're assuming will assist in funding that, including funding from development charge revenues, your water reserve, as well as your water capital replacement reserves. On the wastewater side of things, we're looking at just under $9.9 million for 2025, and then over that next 11-year period, almost $51 million that needs to be funded. Again, on that side of things, we are assuming that there's going to be a need for some growth-related and non-growth-related debentures to help finance some of those projects. And that is because a lot of that growth-related work is really needed early on in the forecast period, and will then need to be recovered over a longer period of time as all of the development that requires the servicing actually comes and gets developed and pays their development charges. You will note that we have in inflated dollars, because we want to make sure that we're building rates that will be reflective of the value that you have to spend on your capital as you move out over this forecast period. And right now, that capital inflation factor that we've built in annually is 5.4%, which is based on the most recent Stats Canada London Construction Price Index. So that's the closest one that's tracked near you. So that's what we've built in. In total, we're looking at about $12.3 million worth of debt that it would be required over this forecast period. And you can see that is all on the wastewater side of things. As noted, the asset management plan, you have recently completed that for the requirements of the legislation this summer. And what we can see that is coming out of that is a requirement really to build into your rates an annual life cycle amount of about 7.3 million. So you'll see a total value there of all of your current water and wastewater assets that is almost $351 million. And what this is saying that is that if you were to invest about 2.1% annually and put funds aside and invest that, that is what that $7.2 million is. And that is what would then allow you to be prepared to have the funds available to actually pay for the infrastructure replacements when they come due. On the operating side of things, there are a number of different inflationary impacts that we have made depending on the type of expenditure. So for insurance, the industry is seeing higher than typical inflation on insurance inflation on insurance. So we have built in 10% on that. As well for utilities and other contracted services. Your hydro, again, we've experienced higher than normal inflation on that and expect to continue to. That's been built in at 5% annually, 3% for salaries, wages, and benefits, and then 2% inflation for all other types of expenses. When it comes to the training and conferences for staff that are embedded, we have not put any increases in the forecast for those. And then, of course, because you purchase your water from the London Huron primary water supply system, we've looked at the rate increases that they have published in a study they undertook that really goes out to 2032 and embraced what you need to purchase based on those rates. Subsequent to that, because we are going out further in your forecast to 2036, we have assumed similar rate increases in what they're imposing out to 2032 on customers. We're assuming that those will continue, and so we've included those as well. What that looks like at a high level graphically, the blue on the bottom of your the graph here is really the pure day-to-day operating expenses, and you can see that that's basically growing over the forecast with inflation. The orange part on the top is really that capital related component. So transfers to reserves, payment of debentures for both principal and interest that are required on both existing debt as well as future debt. That is a little bit more unstable and not as easy because it really is based on the timing of when you need to finance a lot of your capital. On the wastewater side, similarly, you can see that the blue really is looking at that day-to-day expenditures that you have to run the system. And then the orange component is that capital-related component of what's needed to fund the debt and the reserves going forward to fund your capital forecast. So preliminary rate impacts right now that we have run with staff, and we are still working on them, just so that you know we want to meet the needs of the water and wastewater systems. There's reductions to the Exeter Hensel pipeline debt base charge for 2026. And we're anticipating that debt to be paid off by 2034. So that is right now embedded in what we have done as a draft rate. As well, we're looking at customers. Your average residential customer is consuming about 150 cubic meters annually. And so we have embedded that for Exeter into what we're assuming for new growth as well, customers. And what that is really doing is producing an increase in your rates of about 5% per year on average for the first 5 years, and then 1% per year on average after that for the following 6 years. In Stephen, the charges are a little bit different, but what we've got for the first 5 years is about a 7% annual increase on your rates. And then for the final 6 years of the forecast, that would drop down to about a 3% annual increase. Next steps, obviously, we want to receive some direction from council tonight regarding the use of debt financing for capital over the forecast period. In past, council has wanted to not have debt used or minimize debt for specific projects where possible. But of course, if we don't have debt financing, it may result in additional increases to the rates because the funding has to come from somewhere. So we would like to receive and incorporate that feedback from you tonight into the calculated water and wastewater rates so that we can prepare the rate study report and bring it back to you with the recommended rates for your consideration. And then also after that, prepare that water financial plan for your adoption for water licensing purposes. That's our presentation tonight. Tina and I are both here on the line, and Tina has been working very closely on the nitty-gritty details of all of this with staff. So if you have questions for either of us, we'd be happy to help you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really well done. Are there any questions from members of council? Councillor McLeod-Hagan, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Finch. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just looking at the preliminary rate impacts. For the 5% and the 7%, is that so like 7% for Stephen? Would that be 7% on the water base and then another 7% on the sewer base, or is that a split between the two?
Yeah, sorry, that is a combined bill based on a customer or like a low density or single family home using 150 cubic meters annually. That is the average for the first 5 years. Some years may be a little bit more, others may be a little bit less. So we've averaged it over the first 5 years. But yes, it's a water wastewater combined bill.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on that question, just wondering what's the difference there? Why the 5% and the 7%? Why?
Keep in mind, maybe if we go back a few slides, there is a bit of a difference on what Exeter and Stephen currently pay because of that Exeter Hensel debt. So they're not both paying exactly the same amount. Going forward, what we are trying to do is, as that debt, of course, retires, we want to make sure that Stephen and Exeter, all your customers receiving water and wastewater services, are basically paying the same. So over time, there are some differences there in just because of that variable quarterly base charge right now that will change over the forecast. Does that make sense?
Mr. Oak?
Sure. I guess I'm not 100% sure. I wasn't around when the rates were established originally. So I'm not sure why we're playing catch up now. There must have been a reason why they were different at the time. And so I'm just asking that question.
Yeah, if you can still see the screen, it's really this rate that was put in place specifically to recover a debenture financing that was required is not charged the same in Exeter and Stephen right now. As that charge sort of, gets paid off, you're really looking at just the water and wastewater components. And so right now, there's a difference in what they pay today. And so the increase is needed for the future to pay for what's required will be different right now. They're paying something different now. That is anticipated to continue into the future until you get out probably 2 more rate studies from now when that debt is all paid off. Then you'll see everyone kind of come in line and be equal. But until then, you're still going to see differences needed in the increases.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor, you had a comment.
Thank you. That debt increase you're talking about, or sorry, the debt part, that has been there since the new pipeline went in. So why is the 7% and the 5% different now? I guess that's, I think where Councillor Oak was going, and I have the same question, like that debt hasn't changed.
That's right. And
The water rate is changing.
The water rate for the debt is changing, as well as the rates that are the same for both right now. So it's a relationship because we're layering it all together to give a broader understanding right now at a high level of the changes over time. But because there's a differentiation right now in one of the rates, but not the others, it's not an equal increase over the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is more along the lines of, like, we do these rate studies every 4 years or so, and it's laying out 5%, say, for Exeter, and then up by 1% after a certain number of years. I guess I have 2 questions. So in 4 years' time, when we review this, is there the potential that this could go down or could continue to go up when we've reviewed it?
There's always a potential that'll go up or down depending on what is required at that time, what inflation is. If you go back to 2020 and 2021, we were seeing 9 to 10% inflation impacts happening to municipalities. If that inflation impact comes down, there may be savings on what we're building in here in the future, and on that capital side of things, or even the operating side if things sort of stabilize. So there could still be savings at some point, but on the flip side, it could go the other way as well. And you could have years where you have higher than the 5.4% inflationary impact that we built into the capital. It could go higher, it could go lower. So all of that, as well as the timing of when growth actually comes and when the infrastructure is put in place for it, could refine things over time. Because keep in mind that with a lot of the growth related projects, they may not be 100% funded through growth itself. There may be components as you are replacing and upsizing infrastructure, or expanding, say, your treatment side of things for wastewater. You may be still doing some asset management and replacing some components, and that's not paid for through development charges. So any benefit to the existing still has to be made up for your rate. So if growth was to slow, for example, and you needed to push out the projects that were mainly growth related to service them, that would refine some things as well on the non-growth related side that gets funded through the rates. On the flip side, if growth picks up, you might actually have to pull some of your capital needs sooner and put them in place, which means you'll need to potentially finance it from debt to put it in place sooner. And that can all, as soon as you issue debentures on any non-growth related components, that adds interest, of course, to what needs to be recovered, as well as that principal amount from the rates. So there's a multitude of things that can change. The amount of volume that customers are using can change. It can go up or down. And so We do look at historically a number of years to take into consideration wet years, dry years as to, when people are watering outside more than not to come up with that average 150 cubic meters. But if you need to, if everyone starts using more or starts conserving more, all of those factors can refine and change what you need from your rates. And that is why every 4 to 5 years, staff go back and review this and make sure they've embraced everything and that you are recovering what you need to.
Follow-up, Councillor Lee?
Yeah, and again, too, this doesn't take into account any of some of the grants. Like there are some grants that are out there, they're unsustainable, which is why they're not being included in here. I understand that, but that will also have a significant impact even for this year, 2025. With provincial federal grants for the wastewater system were 5.6 million. So I think we still have potential there, but I guess where I'm coming from is, looking at 4 years down the road, and hopefully we'll be able to bring those rates down.
Yeah, and then keep in mind too, on the other side, you're not putting away the full amount you need to right now for your asset management. So if you were, successful in getting some grant funding, what staff would want to look at is it significant enough to potentially update the rate analysis and reduce your rates? Or does that provide additional room for you to actually put more money aside for your asset replacement that you're not currently meeting the full needs on right now? So you may not change your rates. It just might be that the money goes to fund, into reserves to invest and be closer to being able to fund everything else as it comes due in the future for life cycle. Those
Thank
are
you.
all decisions would have to be made.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vaughn, did you have something? Go ahead, please. And then Councillor Oak and then Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the capital needs and financing slide, which has got two boxes, one for water system and one for wastewater system.
Yeah.
On
I'll pull
on
it
the
back up there.
okay. So on the wastewater side, there is under facility related, there is an item in the 2026 to 2036 box that says 9.7 million. And being a rather large number, I'm wondering what that is.
It's probably not just one project. It's probably a number of projects happening over that time period. Tina, do you have any specific large, I know you have the details up there, the behind the scenes, but are there a few that are large that are part of that 9.7 you can explain and provide more detail on?
Yes. Through the chair. So some of the big projects that are part of that facilities related include upgrades to the sewage pumping stations. There's Crediton, Huron Park, and William Street all have some upgrades identified for those. There's also projects regarding Exeter Lagoons and upgrades for those. And I think that basically, those are the big items within that category.
Thank you. Follow-up, Councillor Vaughn?
Okay, that's I'm also wondering if when we get our sort of next report, if those projects will actually be detailed in terms of what they are.
Yeah, and through the chair, they will be detailed as well in the background report. And you'll see every line item that makes up all of these numbers.
Okay, and so if I may, on that same grid, there is also a growth related category on wastewater system. I'm looking at that again. Again, from 2026 to 2036 for 12.9 million. And that's fairly substantial too. So I'm wondering what makes up that 12.9.
Tina, can you provide the details of some of those?
Yeah, so through the chair, I'd given the big breakdown of all the projects, but if we go growth related, now we're going to specific, just for clarity, we're now talking the specific pumping station. So for example, if we look, some of them have a component that is DC funded and a component that is not DC funded. So if you're looking at the chart, you may see the growth related show up with the same project, but the split of it being reflected that way. So a lot of those, the pumping stations are still some of the big ones, the component that is not DC funded. Let me just see what else is in there. Sorry, the component that is DC funded would be under growth related. Let's see what other one.
There's also water mains that, or sorry, wastewater mains.
Yeah, wastewater mains.
That are growth
also-
related would be in
yeah.
there.
And as Nancy said, in the next iteration, we'll give you the full breakdown as well as the categorization. So you'll be able to see which projects fall under which and what component of them.
Okay, thanks for that.
Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Thank you. When you talked about the water increases to water costing purchased water, just FYI, it's Lake Huron water system, not London Huron.
Yeah.
So, but we just got a recent budget email from Lake Huron Water Systems with their proposed 2026 budget and future budgets. They've got a 5% water increase built in there for the next number of years, and it's been that way the last couple. Is that the number you're using for a water costs moving forward for purchased water? Or what number are you guys using?
Yeah, just Tina, have you got that?
Yeah, so through the chair, we did use 5%, which is the rate they've got until about 2029, at which point it drops slightly to 4%. Or at least they're projecting it to drop slightly.
Okay, great, thank you. Just one follow-up. So the capital items that you're including in this this study, when was the cutoff that you stopped any future projects in this rate study? Was it at the end of 2024? Because we've had a few newer ones in 2025 that we've have approved or and we've got some grant money for as well. But were they included in the in this study, or what was your cutoff date?
Yeah, through the chair. So I might have to defer to Dawn on this because there were some that we added in based on those discussions with Dawn that were known. I'm not sure specifically which ones you're speaking of to be able to confirm that. But I believe that where, especially where there was grant funding and a few others that came up, we did even up until Friday last week make a few refinements to this capital forecast. So Dawn, maybe you can confirm whether or not you know what the counselor is specifically asked, like, but unless there's projects you can name and we can check, but we can certainly.
The ones I was wondering was the connecting link, the up intake 10, and then I guess the enabling water. Those two were the two that are the most recent ones, I guess, that we talked about.
Mr. Giverson, welcome.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Finch. Yes, the 2025 projects are included in the this rate study, including those specific projects. So the projects that were in the amended 2025 budget. So we amended the budget, council amended the budget to include the Connecting Link project from the river up to Victoria. So those costs, including the water and sewer component that were subsequently added, they're in the rate study. the London Road South trunk sanitary sewer is included. With the grant funding, the 5.4 million is captured in the rate study, and the roughly 1.9 mil that is to be debentured is also captured in the rate study. We did a further step as we refined this. There was one project, which is the Huron Park equalization tank or storage tank project that was canceled. That's been deducted from the capital in the rate study. And the Grand Bend water main, that when we awarded the engineering, they could not complete the engineering to tender it this year. So the construction component of that has also been eliminated and deducted from the rate study.
Thank you, Mr. Garberson. Deputy Mayor, you had something.
Thank you. Just a question on the water usage outside of our user fee area, which we've had some large fires where there was a lot of water used. Is there any way that we could somehow put a charge on that? I don't know how we do it, but we have to look at something like that because that's quite a bit of dollars toward the users themselves. Thank you.
Who would like to take that? Ms. Masuko.
Through the mayor, I can start with that, but some of that is just through the mutual aid piece, especially for the fire. There's also, as part of another conversation with the fire chief, there may be ways to look into, and I think it's called Fire Marquee. It's a different company that looks into that kind of thing. But as far as billing landowners for fire service use of water, is that kind of what we're clarifying? Maybe Don, maybe you can carry on from there.
Yes, through you, Mayor Finch. Since we did have that one very large fire in Blue Water where they shuttled, I can't remember how many millions of gallons of water to that fire. So with the existing fire agreement, as I understand it, I am not the fire chief, but as I understand that agreement, there is no provision in that agreement to recover those costs. So that would require an amendment to that agreement. In the industry, there are some cases where if there's insurance coverage, there may be an opportunity to recover. But there's also opportunities such as the recent severance of the former or the current grain elevator at Mount Carmel in Victoria, that they receive the full benefit of, if there's a fire at that facility, they receive the full benefit of the water from the South Huron system and they pay nothing. So when those opportunities come up, that's why staff always puts those forward as why that those customers should be converted if they're on another system. Like with all, and I would stop with this. There are some municipalities that have in their agreements that across the border they charge a premium rate. We have never done that. We have a number of Blue Water customers along our north border, and in Dashwood, they are charged the same rates as our own customers. Along the anywhere we have water supplied from North Middlesex, we pay a premium. It's 50% of the purchase water cost. We pay a premium on that, but we charge our own customers our own rate. So we treat everybody the same, but that's a fairly common, or it's a common enough thing that across borders, people will charge a premium. This is for regular water use.
Thank you, Mr. Garberson. Any other questions? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, my next questions are around the existing customer profile, where we talk about residential in basically two different categories, being apartment and other residential. And so we have some numbers there. And I did notice that about 17% of our residential water customers are getting a discount, and 21% of our wastewater customers are getting a discount. There's also an asterisk that gives a little definition about what apartments actually means, and it seems to include duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, converted dwellings, and also, if I'm reading this correctly, maybe some commercial mixed-use properties. So I don't believe in our last water or wastewater study, we talked in great detail about why this discount is in existence. And so I'm wondering if we're going to have an opportunity to talk about why they are the way they are and why certain properties are the way they are. And if there's an opportunity for us to look at this differently. I don't know when this was first created, but I would expect that there have been a number of capital projects that we've done that these particular dwellings have benefited from over the years and will continue to. So, long question.
Mr.
Let me,
Iverson, did you want to take, oh, sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
no, that's okay. Just through the mayor, and maybe Dawn wants to add a little bit more when I'm done too. But keep in mind that these are charged on a per unit basis. So if there's a duplex, you're being charged two of the rates. So you're getting double. If there's a triplex, it's 3 units times the rate. In those types of units, apartments, triplexes, fourplexes, etc., as well as mixed use, which is typically commercial on the first floor and then an apartment above it, they tend to have smaller occupancy. And we see that in the differentiation of your development charge rates as well. As the occupancy of units decreases, so does the rate that they would pay, because they're not getting this service for as many people. And you would think that in an apartment, typically you are somewhere between usually 1.2 and maybe 2.5 people per unit. They're going to use less water per unit than what someone in a single family home that on average has 3 or 4 people in it would be utilizing. And so that rate has been in place for quite some time with you guys, but that's what it was based on, really recognizing that lower occupancy and use of water and wastewater service versus what a lower medium density, single family semi-detached or townhouse unit would be using. Tom,
Thank
if you want to add any more to that.
Mr. Iverson, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, Mayor Finch. This was developed in 2008 when the rate study was done at the direction of council, was to harmonize the rates. I can tell you the old history. Prior to the 2008 study, there were a multitude of different rates. They were all over the map. There were dozens of different rates. Cottage part-time, cottage full-time. There was just, it went on and on and on. So the direction of council was clean up this mess, harmonize the rates so everybody's paying the same rates. And the only rate that we couldn't harmonize and make exactly the same in fairness to everybody was the Exeter Hensel debt charge, because it's predominantly for Exeter. So that is split based on flow proportional. So it has its anchor, its roots in the design brief for the Exeter Hensel pipeline. It has a percentage of flow that goes to Stephen Ward, small percentage, and the balance of the flow is designed to come to Exeter, and that debt charge is calculated on that basis. It's to be as fair as possible in the distribution of the cost. This apartment rate versus a single family rate, hotly debated in 2008. Prior to that, a converted house, it would have 4 apartments in it, paid the same charge as the small little 1,200 square foot bungalow, or if you had a 3,000 square foot home. So with the intensity of development, the number of units, it was deemed to be fair to be paying on the basis of the number of units. But a unit in a house has less demand on the water system. You could have the same physical size of that building as a single family house. But if it has multiple units, some have 2, 3, 4, the discount, or it actually isn't a discount, it's the distribution of the cost, but that lower rate is to reflect that it's a number of units in a compact area. So there is the full background information, and when we have our next meeting, we can have a more fulsome discussion about it, so it is fully understood. So it's not a discount. It is an application of the fairness of the rates. So moving from where you would have a 25 unit apartment building paying the same base charge as a small house was deemed to be unfair. That's not a fair distribution of costs. So it moved from there to paying on a dwelling unit basis. But then when you looked at that and did that analysis, multiple units in one compact area per unit has less impact on the water system. So the rate was deemed to be, and I'm going off the top of my head, 75% of the residential rate to get it in the correct fair proportion. I'd also like to answer the question about the difference between 5 and 7. It's been that way forever, or not forever, since the 2008 when the debt charge was established. There always is going to be a difference between Stephen and Exeter, because as you adjust the debt, the base charges are consistent, but the debt charge, because it's such a large number for Exeter and such a small number for Stephen, it's less than $4 for Stephen a quarter. So when you're doing those adjustments, you'll get a difference in the overall percentage because you're adjusting a very big number by the same percentage as you adjust a very small number. So it's pretty much basic math on when you calculate it into the total they're charging, because the base charges are going up proportionally the same based on the need of the system. The consumptive charge is going up based on what the water board is charging us. The only thing that's adjusting by the same percentages, but it's a much bigger number and a smaller number, is that debt charge. So when you add it all up to the bottom line, you'll get a bigger percentage difference. That is the only reason it's different. Base charges are going up the same percentage, both Exeter and Stephen. Consumptive charge, same percentage across the board. It's the debt charge is being changed by the same percentage. It's just a big honking number for Exeter and a small number for Stephen. That is why it's different.
Thank you, Mr. Garberson. Councillor Vaughn.
If I could get back to a follow-up question on this apartment. I somewhat understand what you're saying about we're taking a pipe into one building, and so there's some economies in there. But we also have our rates that are divided between consumption and base rates. And I'm not even talking about the Hensel debt. Take that away. Okay. And so since 2008, we have changed our base rate. Because I don't know, it's a phenomena that once people understood that they could lower their utility bills by using less in the form of water, and Lake Huron water supply has the same phenomena happening there, they had to make adjustments to their fixed rates. And the fixed rates in our sort of language with our utility bills seems to be in the base rates that are charged on a quarterly basis. So when we're changing things like pipes in the ground, like water mains or sewer mains and things like that, everybody benefits from that. And if those are paid out of the base rates or those fixed rates, I sort of wonder, from 2008 till 2025, we have made changes to those base rates to make up for the fact we're not getting as much in usage. And so this is why I'm asking if there's an opportunity here for us to talk about this in our next meeting in a little more detail about why it was we did it the way we did it in 2008 and what has changed in the environment to 2025 that might make us want to rethink how we're actually approaching it for these units. I only bring that up because I'm seeing a I think it's a substantial percentage of 17% of our water customers are paying less, whatever you want to call it, a discount or whatever, and 21% of our wastewater customers are paying less. So I think it should be looked at.
Through the mayor, one of our next steps is to have a workshop, and it sounds like it would be a good idea to go through the guiding principles and for council to see whether or not those were done in 2008. Maybe it's just looking at them and reviewing to see whether or not that still meets what council wants to do. So we can add that to the beginning of that workshop.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at this time for our guests? Okay, not- oh,
I
sorry.
just,
Okay,
yeah,
go ahead,
wanted
Nancy.
to- I'll just jump in there through the mayor. One thing to keep in mind, and I know there has been conservation in the system throughout the province, not just in South Huron, that we've seen, over the last 10 to 15 years, or even 20 years. I mean, if you go back 20 years ago, the average consumption by a residential customer was between, it was around 250 cubic meters a year. That is significantly decreased in the province for a number of reasons, but it ranges now between 120 and 180. So your 150 is kind of bang on the middle of that and what we see elsewhere. And part of that is the fact that in new homes, as well as when people are renovating their existing homes, there's higher efficiency appliances for dishwashers and washing machines, shower heads. And then on the wastewater side, there's higher efficiency toilets that use less water. So there's a reason a part of that over the last couple of decades has really, we're seeing those volumes being less. However, keep in mind that about 90 to 95% of most of your costs are fixed, regardless of how much water someone uses. And so back in 2008, part of more reliance on the base charges versus the volume rates was part of the discussion and reason why you're putting more emphasis on recovering as much as you can through those base charges, because they're your fixed costs. But on the other side, understanding if you're looking at this rate, if I live in a fourplex in South Huron, I'm paying $83.72 for water and $103.73 for wastewater every quarter. And the other 3 units in my building are also each paying that. And so that's where we may be on the same size property as a single family home. And we're actually paying more than a single family home at the end of the day because we're each paying that. However, we're probably individually using a little bit less volume in the system than what a single family home would be. And that's where I was talking about the occupancy. So hopefully that's a little bit more information as why back in 2008, there was a recommendation to recognize some of those economies in the rates that were going to be imposed on those smaller units that are in sort of the same land area or building area using as a single or semi-detached home would.
Thank you. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just as far as, and I agree with having a committee of the whole or a workshop or whatever we're looking at, because one of the next steps was talking about direction from council regarding using debt financing. I think we're not there yet to have that recommendation. I think we need a little bit more information before we can go down which direction we should head on that, and get a little bit more of the background study as far as what's included and just some of the assumptions that are being made in this study. So that would be my recommendation before we talk about debt financing. We need some more information.
Thank you. Councillor Vaughn, you have something?
I did. I had one other historical question that I would like to have an answer to. So it deals kind of with apartments and kind of not. And it has to do with Grand Cove, which is a area with 450 or so units. And they pay in their collection system for both water and sewer for all of the pipes in the ground. It's not a municipal expense, it's their expense. And we have, as far as I know, sort of a one pipe that brings it to the front door of Grand Cove and distributes through their pipes for the water, and one pipe that takes it to the exit and goes into the municipal drain. So I would also like to know what the logic was for that particular development, that they would be not treated as an apartment type environment.
Mr. Giverson, did you want to comment? It's up to you.
Through you, Mayor Finch, if we had 3 or 4 hours, I could give you all the history, but there isn't time during the meeting. There is extensive history and background on Grand Cove Estates. It's been to council multiple times. There are presentations to council. They lobbied council. There are lots and lots of background on this, which can be provided. So the last direction from council, when there was a mention of legal action against the municipality, the direction, and there is a council resolution to this effect, that the single family rate would apply. And it's because of the service that is provided to the door to be distributed through Grand Cove Estates. And Grand Cove Estates is not unique. There is a land lease development in Exeter. There's actually 2 of them. There's another one in Stephen. So it's not unique to Grand Cove. But the guiding principles for the charges in Grand Cove have extensive history and provided to council and directed by council. With the last one was I would say a suggestion of a legal challenge to the bylaw on the rates, at which council then directed they would be the single family rates. So at the next workshop, or if there's a written dissertation, I could spend a few months writing one for Grand Cove Estates, but it has extensive background. And it's not just staff putting things forward. Consultant was involved. It's been to council. If I can't stress this enough, it's been to council multiple times and reviewed and direction given. And that's what we're basing it on today.
Thank you, Mr. Giverson, for that history. Any other questions at this time? Councillor Vaughn.
So I just heard from Mr. Giverson, and I'm just wondering, are we going to be provided with some information as to the Grand Cove?
We can actually include that as part of the guiding principles.
Okay.
It might not be specific to Grand Cove. It might be, I guess there's other properties as well. So where that came about, yes.
I'm most familiar with the Grand Cove one,
Okay.
and been on council 3 terms now. I don't ever remember it coming to council during my terms.
Okay.
So it's before that,
Right.
whenever.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions for our guests, thank you very much, Nancy and Tina, for attending this evening. Appreciate your input. And
Thank you.
yeah, if there's nothing further, I'll turn to Ms. Sue Carlson for the recommendation.
The South Huron Council receives a water and wastewater rate study as presented by Nancy Neal and Tina Chitsindy of Watsons and Associates.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, go on to no delegations, no public meeting, 7.1, please.
That South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the budget meeting of September 29th, 2025, and the regular council meeting of October 6th, 2025, as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Counselor Neeb moves, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. 8, please.
That the correspondence minutes of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council: the Grand Bend Area Joint Sewage Board, the minutes of August 1st, 2025, and the correspondence and 2026 draft budget for council comment. Committee of Adjustment draft minutes of October 6th, 2025.
And a mover, please. Counselor Neeb moves, seconded by Counselor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 9, please.
That South Huron Council receives staff report BPS 11, 2025, Building and Planning Third Quarter Activity Report for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 9.1.2.
That South Huron Council receives staff report BPS 12, 2025, Proposed Municipal Roadway, Grand Bend Industrial Park, and that staff prepare a development agreement with 975038 Ontario Limited regarding the upgrading and eventual assumption of the existing roadway within Part 1 Plan 22RD 70 for council consideration, and that South Huron Council requires that all costs associated with the roadway within Part 1 Plan 22RD 70 be borne by 975038 Ontario Limited.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy or Counselor Dietrich, seconded by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Counselor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple questions. Now we're looking at a roadway, and it looks like it's going from gravel to pavement, a paved road, with the 150 millimeter water main. Is there any sewer line going in at the same time? Is there sewer there at the same? I guess that is just wondering if we're doing this, is there sewer going in, because it talks about potential severances or developments that are going to be happening there. So just wondering the whole scope of the project.
Mr. Rolfe, if you want to take that.
Through you, Mayor Finch. No, at this point in time, there's no sanitary proposed on that within that road allowance. There is a pump station north of the roadway. So once that north development expands and develops, then at that point there will be integration of the sanitary system throughout whatever that roadway is. If at some point it expands to the east or the west into those airport lands or to the south, at that point they would be able to expand in the ditched area of that right away.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, thank you. There were a couple of mentions, maybe not in the staff report, maybe not, but definitely in the communication later in the agenda that talked about some legal issues, that there's a private easement and it's presenting some challenges. And so it would be less challenging if we move this to a municipal ownership perspective. And so I'm really a little unsure as to what the legal challenges of a private easement, how that plays all together. Are we getting involved in something beyond this requester's property?
Who'd like to take that? Mr. Rolfe?
Through you, Mayor Finch. Just trying to understand the question. The question was if we assume the roadway, would we be involved, or what's the legal ramifications if the roadway remains to the developer?
No, the question is really around the fact that the actual requester of this roadway
Yes.
is mentioning that this is a private easement.
Correct.
And it's presenting a challenge for them, which they would like not to have. And perhaps if the municipality took over the ownership, that challenge would go away. And it might for them. But would it become our challenge is the question.
Through you, Mayor Finch. So currently there's a private easement over that parcel of property to access the development to the north, I think, at the end of it for this self-storage building. Permanent private easements are not in perpetuity because there could be an issue where property sells, easements maybe disintegrate, dissolve, something on that line. That may be the legal ramification that they're indicating. If it becomes a municipal roadway assumed by the municipality, those easements are abolished. We own the property. It is ours, and it's just like any other public road. They'll have full access across that roadway, as well as the developer to the north. When they go to develop, there'll be access onto that municipal roadway as well. So in that aspect, those legal ramifications would be dissolved because there would not be an easement there. We would own the property. That property would be transferred to ourselves, to the municipality.
Ms. Basu-Coulson.
So through the mayor, so just Mike, to clarify, I guess what we're getting from you is that if it is an easement, then it's not necessarily permanent and always reliable for the other property owners, only for as long as the easement's in place, and it may not be extended. So that's likely the concern, right? Whereas the municipal roadway is permanent and has public access in perpetuity. Does that kind of clarify it a bit?
Yep, through the mayor. That's exactly right. Permanent easement does have to go through a severance process. However, there could be issues between the two property owners or who is ever registered on that easement agreement.
Councillor Vaughn, a follow-up?
Yes, I do have a follow-up. So I'm just wondering, is the municipality legally okay to just come in and take over?
I would assume there'd be a lawyer involved, I would think, at the bare minimum, of course.
Okay.
That would establish that. It wouldn't be just us walking in and taking it on.
I'm just trying to understand how complicated this transaction could get.
Through the mayor, it would be a legal process, and as the owner of the property is agreeable to this, it's expected that they would sign whatever's necessary. Okay.
So it's early days on the who's agreeable and who's not.
Through the mayor, the owner of the property is agreeable, and they're suggesting this as well, along with the other developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy, you had something? Did you have a comment?
Thank you. I guess I'm looking at the maintenance on the road here. We don't have any roads out front. It's county roads. So we would have to come from the Kirkton Road on down to maintain this. Is that correct? So I just wonder, like, this seems like a small number for maintenance, especially snow removal and salt and sand. I'm guessing we'll have to do that. So I'm just wondering if we're a little shy on it, and maybe not, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you, everyone. Next item, please.
Let South Huron Council receive staff report BPS 13-2025 Parkland Dedication Bylaw, and that council approves the draft Parkland Dedication Bylaw, and that the bylaw be brought back for the required 3 readings.
And the mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Councillor Oak?
Just, thank you, Mayor. Quick question about, just wondering, why this is being brought forward to us tonight. Just wondering the premise of the bylaw.
Through the mayor, I'll start and then Mike can continue if I miss anything. But it was part of the official plan and the review, kind of formalizing everything. Right now, what we do have is the legislation and a fees and charges bylaw just align. So there really isn't a whole lot of guidance on what could be considered for the parkland. And as well, as far as the appraisal piece, that's changed as well, and we're formalizing that prior. I believe it was on MPAC assessment, and now we've changed it to appraisal. So it's just formalizing how we calculate.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing, we have, Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thank you to the mayor. This dedicated parkland cash in lieu, there seems to be some discussion maybe on when there's a severance on a farm building, does they have to pay parkland and not too?
Mr. Rolfe, would you want to take that?
Through you, Mayor Finch. Yes, when you sever off a farm property, you do have to pay parkland. Our fees and charges bylaw is currently $500 for cash in lieu of parkland.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question, all in favor. And that carries with a 7. Thank you. Next item, 9.1.4.
The South Huron Council received staff report BPS 14-2025, Thames Road West Force Main, and that a report be brought back for council consideration outlining project costs, options for financing, and steps to move forward with the installation of a sanitary force main within Thames Road West road allowance.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I know, thank you, Mayor. I know we're working with the county on a couple projects for water and wastewater on the main street to the railway. Is this something that can fit into that working that we're because it is? Do we have to get their approval for this force main on the side of the road? As it's being positioned, or should this be included in those projects?
Mr. Rolfe, do you want to take that?
Through you, Mayor Finch. We'll definitely need to get approval from the county to put infrastructure within their right of ways. We haven't talked to them yet, but yes, we will definitely be talking to them. Regarding whether or not the works can be included with the other works that the county are proposing, more than likely not, and that would be due to timing. I'm not sure 100% on that project. I don't know how far west it goes, but due to the timing of the development or developments that are being proposed, that force main will need to go in relatively quick.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Oak.
And just you know, in the past with some of these type of projects, when there's a situation where it's a developer requesting, you know, some land, should we be guided by our growth paying for growth? And a developer paying for this, or a portion of it, or how should we be looking at this?
Mr. Rolfe.
Yes, through Mayor Finch. Yeah, we'll definitely be talking to the developers regarding that to see if there's any avenue there, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neeb.
I think this is positive news. I know around the council table over the last 6-7 years, we've been talking about ways of trying to develop more commercial and industrial land. So this is positive to hear that we not only have interest, but if there's an application in to move towards it. So I'm in favor for that, but I do think it'd be worthwhile to see if we can get some of that cost back. Again, growth should be paying for growth.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you, everyone. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report CSD 18-2025, Jay's Care Field of Dreams Funding Program, and that council authorizes submission of an expression of interest to the Jay's Care Field of Dreams Funding Program to support the replacement of fencing at Diamonds 1 and 2 at South Huron Rec Center, a new backstop, as well as the addition of covered dugouts.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries 7. Thank you. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report Fire 07-2025 Fire Prevention Service Agreement, and that council approves the draft agreement in principle, and that the bylaw be brought back for the required 3 readings.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council received staff report ESD 15-2025 Results of Drinking Water Quality Management System External Audit for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, please.
The South Huron Council received staff report TSD 10-2025 pedestrian crossover on Main Street South between John Street East and James Street.
Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Just for clarity, through the chair, in the report, it says next steps, should council wish to proceed with a PXO, the final bylaw will need to be brought back for consideration. Does that mean, should we be bringing this back now, or are we bringing this back at our budget discussion?
Specific call from
Through the mayor, should council wish to proceed, they could amend this existing resolution. I'll confirm with the clerk, and then have the bylaw be brought back for consideration.
Madam Clerk.
Yeah, through the chair. So if council wishes to proceed, the current motion could be amended to include that the bylaw be brought back for the required 3 readings, and that would be brought back at the next council meeting.
Councillor Neeb.
Yep, I would be willing to move that.
With that, we've already have a mover second with the friendly amendment then?
Yep, sounds good.
Councillor Oak, you agree with that? Okay, thank you. Could you just read that new recommendation, please?
That South Huron Council receives staff report TSD 10-2025 pedestrian crossover on Main Street South between John Street East and James Street, and that the bylaw be brought back for the required 3 readings.
So moved, Councillor Neeb.
So moved.
Satisfied with that, and Councillor Oak satisfied with that. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just wondering if we could get a high level description of what's taking place with the both sides of the road there on just for clarification.
Through the mayor. So the east side where the flower beds would be, the northern section of the flower bed would be removed just because of sightline issues. And there is the 2-3 trees, larger trees, they would be transplanted, also due to sightline issues. And then a ramp would be brought back in. So the curb would be cut in that area too, and then ramped down slowly at AODA standards. On the west side, there would be 1.5 parking spots, which would make it 2 parking spots would become unavailable, just again due to sightline issues and pedestrian safety.
And just for clarification, those the brick sidewalk is going to be replaced with concrete, I understand. And just wanted the clarification on the southern flower bed changes to it.
Through the mayor, sorry, I did forget that the interlocking brick in that area would be removed as it is deteriorating and causing some issues in that area. The southern flower bed would remain kind of as it is. Southern.
Yeah, okay, no, and that's good because it had said something about it was going to go down to just ground level, but I was thinking that sight lines, it should be fine at the height it is, but I'm just wondering your thoughts.
Thank you. And go ahead, Ching.
It's going to be left for now. It could be something you can design all you want, but as soon as it really comes into picture and it's there, and if there is pedestrian safety issues, we have to deal with them. And that would be the time then we would drop it down, and there might be some, more low growing fescue plants or grasses or something like that that may have to be done there.
Okay, thank you. And just the idea of timelines, when, if the bylaw gets passed, how long do you think something like this could be installed?
Through the mayor, that still all depends on the MTO approval from the PMH 120 drawing.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Vaughn.
Thank you. There was also mention in the report about relocating the 3 lollipop trees that are there right now, potentially into the actual parkette. And I'm just thinking that's going to make that parkette pretty crowded. Our tree policy basically says if we're removing trees, we replace on a 2-for-1 basis. And I'm just wondering if we don't have perhaps a better spot to put trees in South Huron rather than in that park.
Through the mayor, yes, if there's no room in the parkette, it's not an issue to retransplant those in other areas, McNaughton Park or any other location. That will also be discussed with community services if they have an area or a preference of where those wooden trees would go. And if there's not a location, yes, if it is need to be removed, it would be that we would plant 2 trees on behalf of each one of the ones that would be removed.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Neep.
No, it's just more of a comment. I think too, it'll be nice if that PXO does go in because that'll increase accessibility. Like there are a lot of people that cross that street and not having to walk up to they don't walk up to the lights. So I think this is an added benefit too, as well for pedestrians. Having that PXO there will hopefully slow down the traffic. There'll be some traffic calming with that, which I think is a huge benefit. So plus the parkette being right there, like it fits. So yeah, thank you for the report, and hopefully we can move this forward.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, thanks, Mr. Timmons, for your approach to this. And if there's nothing further, we have a mover and a seconder. Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4.1, please.
The South Huron Council received staff report FIN 20-2025. The 2025 council expenses as of September 30th, 2025 for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next item.
The South Huron Council received staff report FIN 21-2025, the 2025 capital progress report, September 2025 for information.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next item.
The South Huron Council received staff report BL 04-2025, request for service complaints and bylaw infractions, 2025 third quarter activity summary.
And a mover, please. Councillor Neeb moves, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. Just I'm wondering if there's who would up the limit on these tile drain loans. I guess anyone that has to do with drainage now, this is not a very large number.
We're at 9.4.3, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Next item. That's
I was
okay.
trying to get it over for the
That's
Jays
okay,
game.
yeah. So if there's nothing further, 9.4.3, I know Jim's in favor of going to the Jays game, watching it. So call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4.4.
The South Huron Council received staff report CL 18-2025, application for tile drain loans provisional approval, and the South Huron Council provisionally approves a tile drain loan in the amount of $18,700 for concession 9, South Part Lot 14, Usborne Ward, Municipality of South Huron to Jeffrey Borland, and the South Huron Council provisionally approve a tile drain loan in the amount of $50,000 for concession North Side Thames Road, Lot 14, Usborne Ward, Municipality of South Huron to the estate of Elizabeth Borland.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Discussion. Deputy, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wondering if there's any way we could go about making a recommendation somewhere. I just find that it's very, very small amount, the cost to keep up with the cost of tiling a farm now. So Just thoughts.
Yeah, through the mayor, there's a couple of options. We can connect with MPP Lisa Thompson and just to chat with her, but it's also a MAFRA. So it could be at some point, maybe a part of a delegation if that's what we're planning on doing, or at least providing that information and feedback.
Thank you. Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, a delegation maybe. Now, I do know we have a limit that we have as a municipality as well, too. A cap that the OMAFA has, it's 50,000 for a producer, but I'm not sure what I think it said in the report, maybe we're not close to our cap.
No, the total amount that we can loan out, yes, we do have a cap for that, but that's not necessarily per application. Yeah.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. No further discussion. Call the question. All in favor. Carries with 7. Thank you. Next item, we notice the motion, and Madam Clerk, are there any notice of motion that you're aware of?
There are none.
Thank you. Item number 11, anyone wish to discuss the previous meeting items? Not seeing any. Okay, new business. Is there any new business at this time? Not seeing any. Okay, move on to mayor and councillor comments and announcements. Anything at this time? Like quiet group tonight. Okay, I do know we've had requests for the Legion, both, well, I know Exeter's requested us to have a wreath layer there. So I'm wondering if we have a mover to provide wreaths for both Exeter and Grand Bend Legions. Is there any interest in that like we have in the past? Councillor Need, go ahead. Councillor Vaughn, your comment for both?
Moving. Yes, for a mover.
And do we need a dollar amount? Ms. Basula Collison? No? Okay, fine. So moved by Councillor Vaughn for both Exeter and Grand Bend Legions on their wreath laying day, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion on that? Okay, not seeing. Call the question. All in favor, and that carries with 7. Thank you. Okay, communications, we go on to that. And please, if you want something pulled, please advise.
14.1,
Pull that.
14.2, 14.3, 14.4,
Pull.
14.5, 14.6.
Okay, thank you. So 14.1, I had received correspondence from Jared Van Volkengood. I'm just wondering, perhaps, I know that intersection is a fairly dangerous intersection. I'm wondering if we could perhaps send a letter to the MTO advocating for more upgrades, flashing stop sign there with the flashing lights, anything like that at all? Is there someone council would like to make a motion to do that? Councilor McLeod Haggett moves, seconded by Councillor Neeb. And I'll have our clerk prepare a motion for that. Councillor McLeod Haggett.
Sorry, is there also a way that we could get some stats of accidents that have happened? Because I know like there's been some significant accidents on that corner. So I think having some of that data to go along with the recommendations might be helpful.
So under the MTO rules, it's called a key point. So Whalen Line is actually a key point on the MTO roadway. So they'd be able to pull that stat themselves. You wouldn't need an OPP report at all because it's a provincial highway. County roads and municipal roads do not have a key point. So I don't think we need that information. Yeah, okay.
That South Huron Council forward the correspondence of Jared Van Valkengood regarding a request for flashing stop signs at Huron Park Road and Highway 4 corners for safety to the Ministry of Transportation. That South Huron advocates for those changes.
So move Councillor McLeod Haggett, seconded by Councillor Neeb. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on that one? Not seeing any. Call the question. All in favor, and that carries a 7. Thank you for that. Next item, Councillor Neeb, 14.4.
Yep, so this is a resolution from the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, and it's asking about the OCIF envelope and making sure that that it's available beyond the 5-year term of 2026. And it's also asking that in the future that the increase go up by CIP, I think, or CPI. It's also asking that there be a framework that guarantees percentages of funding to each municipality. So I think this is beneficial for us so that we kind of have an idea of what we could receive from the OCIF. So just wondering if we could support the resolution from Edwardsburg Cardinal.
And comment from Ms. Sue Carlson, is there any comment?
Oh, yes, that would be very beneficial for us to have some, sustained funding. I know AMO was pushing for it, but it's always good to circulate these resolutions as well.
Thank you. So a motion to support that from Councillor Neeb. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor seconds that, and I'll wait for our clerk to prepare that. Oh, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I just look at who this was circulated to, and I think we should send this to Lisa as well, our local MPP.
Yeah.
That South Huron Council supports the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal September 29th, 2025 resolution regarding Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, OCIF, and that the supporting resolution and originating correspondence be circulated to the Premier, Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister of Finance, MPP Thompson, AMO, OSAM, FCM, and all Ontario municipalities.
Thank you. So moved, Councillor Neeb, and seconded. Deputy, you're okay with that? Good, thank you. Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor. That carries with 7. Thank you. Recommendation, please.
The South Huron Council receives communication items not otherwise dealt with.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor. That carries with 7. Thank you. There's no report from closed session and therefore bylaws.
The South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to Bylaw 63, 2025, being a bylaw to amend Bylaw 59, 2013, being a bylaw to provide for remuneration and expenses of members of councils, committees, local boards, and other officials.
And a mover for that, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Dietrich. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor. Carries with 7. Thank you. 17.1.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to Bylaw 64, 2025, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the October 20th, 2025 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor. And that carries with 7. Thank you. And adjournment.
The South Huron Council hereby adjourn at 7:42 p.m. to meet again on November 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Neeb. No discussion. Meeting adjourned.